Hey everybody, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast, Wednesday, March 13th. Middle of the week, hump day as they say Wednesday is. From here on out, just 2 days left in the week, and then we get to the weekend. For me, the weekend is not what it used to be. It hasn't been what it used to be ever since I've had my first child. But when you add the second child to the mix, especially when that second child is a newborn, you actually kind of look forward to the weekdays. Why do I say that? Selfishly, because my wife will take much of the onus on the overnight for our son Connor, who just celebrated his third week of life yesterday, Tuesday. He was born on February 19th, but during the week, my wife will, obviously she has to do the feeding. I can't provide any help in that sphere, but typically what I'll do on the overnight is the baby will wake up roughly every 3 hours overnight, or he'll need to be fed every 3 hours. So if he's fed, he might feed for about a half hour, and then it can take 15 to 30 minutes at that point for him to fall asleep. And then at that point, you're looking at 2 hours of sleeping. And so you try to align with that as the parents and get as much sleep as you can, accumulate as much sleep as you can before our first son, Liam, wakes up at around 6:37, sometimes 7:30 in the morning. He's been going of late. So you're just trying to accumulate sleep in between the times when you put your firstborn down and the time he wakes up, knowing full well that the secondborn is going to wake up or need to be fed every 3 hours. So it's sort of a game. But what we do is we'll both get up. When he gets up, he starts kind of making some funny noises. I've sort of likened it to when you watch The Walking Dead and one of the characters loses their life, or any characters, normal humans, they die, they pass on. And then after a period of however long where they're dead, the kind of zombie-like qualities start to kick in, and they start to kind of crackle and make strange noises as they wake up. It's sort of similar with a baby. They just start crackling, and you got to catch them before they start making way too much noise, because especially with this guy, when he starts crying, it is an intense, insane amount of crying. It is the loudest cry. It is like we are torturing him. The longer the change happens, the longer that he's in his little changing table, it just gets out of control, and we don't want that to cascade down the hall to wake up our firstborn. So what I'll do is I'll get up, I'll change him, I'll prepare him, and then I'll hand him off to my wife, who then does the feeding, and I pretty much jump back into bed and go right back to sleep. And sometimes she'll wake me up a little bit to ask if I could take him for a second, and then she will walk him around the room. Now, there have been times where he's up an hour in that walking around phase, and that's brutal. And I can't do that because I have to commute 2 hours round trip during the week. And so if I don't get enough sleep, it's actually a danger to me. And so she graciously, pretty graceful for doing it at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, but she will graciously take him and do that process, which allows me to get as much sleep, to accumulate as much sleep as possible. When we get to the weekends, I told her I will do more of that because we're going to be home. I'm not going to be commuting. I'm just going to be home, and I'm just going to be tired like she is. I don't do well with lack of sleep, but since I don't have to commute, I will do my best to help. I kind of fell flat on my face this past weekend. I just couldn't get up. Maybe have a glass or two of wine, a beer or two, and that doesn't help. It's like having a tranquilizer, trying to get up 2 hours after falling asleep. It is not pretty. So I need to do better. But this is kind of why I root for the week, because I'm going to get that full sleep, and I'm going to go to work. And let's be honest, I'm at work, but I'm not being bothered by 2 children, 4 years and younger, a tired wife, and just being at the beck and call of that situation. I know, selfish. It is what it is. I'm sorry. But because of that, weekends are different than weekdays ever were. As if to throw more onto the pot, I think I talked in the last episode that I'd been looking to go into graduate school to get an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration. MBA is a very great kind of acronym. We hear it and it just kind of denotes and connotes just authority in the field. You know, an MBA candidate, an MBA graduate. It just looks good. And I've been running up against some walls as I look for new opportunities in life. And I think this is the type of thing I can do that will not only add to the resume, but over the period of time, the 49 credits that you need to accrue to finish out the program, there will be networking, there will be career services, there will be opportunities. There will be opportunities that come to you while you're in it. Because of the fact that you're in it, you just never know where it goes. It's time to create a new situation. It's time to upend life a little bit in a positive way, to break some things apart, to cut through the scar tissue, and to kind of see where you can build as we move on in life. I'm almost 40 years old. I'm 36. I'll be 37 in July. It just feels like that time where I need a big change, and I think this might be it. And it doesn't upend things too much because I did get accepted yesterday on the third week of my child's birth, right? I got accepted yesterday to Rutgers Business School on the MBA track, on the part-time MBA track. Now, it's an exciting thing. I was very happy to get in. I really just kind of put my mind to getting into the program, and I applied over one single day. I got my my letters of recommendation from a couple of people that I really enjoy. Really nice ones as well. I thank them. One of them was Tim Castano, who has been on this podcast numerous times in sports and pop culture capacities. In his day job, he's a very impressive guy as well. So he was a very nice letter of recommendation to get. And I got all that in, and I applied, and I'm on it. I mean, this is 15 years since I last was in college, and I'm a different person. I have organization. I have 2 kids and a marriage now, but I'm a different person 15 years in the work world, experiences, all that. I think I'll be a better student. I know I'll be a better student. The key is then I didn't have really any other responsibilities. Now all I have are responsibilities, and it's going to be a real interesting challenge to see how I can fit my life, fit this in, how I can get the time needed to be in college and to finish assignments and to go to class and to do all of the responsibilities that come with that. Now, it is a part-time track, so you don't have to do, by its nature, it's not a full-time, full credit type of thing. So my plan to get to these 49 credits, and I don't want to be in school for 8 years to finish this. I don't want to be going 1 class per semester, but my plan is to do 2 classes per semester and to utilize the summer semester as well, so that I'm hopefully clearing maybe 18 credits in a year. Once you get to 24 credits, you are the career services are made available to you. That's a big deal. And so to get to 49, I'm thinking that it's 2 years and a quarter, 2 years and a half. We'll see how it goes. Again, it's sort of an unknown for me. It's been a long time since I was in college. I was not a great student then. I think I will be now. I still got by. I still did well. I still went to a good college. I went to NYU. But it's going to be really interesting to see how things play out now. So I did get in. I was really excited about that. I'm excited to post it, to kind of announce it. I got a lot of encouragement up and down the line. I got great encouragement from corners that I hadn't even thought of. I think people appreciate when somebody tries to better themselves and tries to do something difficult in the cauldron of an already kind of stacked and loaded life. And to me, that's what I'm going to kind of thrive on. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to work through the night when I need to. I'm going to find every minute, every quarter hour, anytime I can get to work and doing stuff, I'm going to do it. It's going to be challenging because of that. It's going to be a balancing act, but I know I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to handle it, and I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be on a bit of a roller coaster for the next 2 to 3 years, and we'll see where I come out on it. I'm really looking forward to the opportunities that should come out of it, and I'm really looking to kind of fill in the blanks on a lot of the protocols and processes that I do in my day job, but that I just don't have the kind of standardized professional training in. And I think a lot of it will make my day job easier. It'll potentially give me the opportunities for better day jobs and more opportunities in the corporate sphere, in the technology sphere, in the pharmaceuticals and medical devices sphere, sort of in the multinational kind of business level that I really want to be at. And I think that it's going to give me the opening to have a better opportunity at getting on that playing field. So I am excited to where we're going to lead. So the first step was getting in. I did. Now, of course, I got in and there was a couple of stipulations, two of which were that you have to be proficient in calculus and statistics. Now, I'm pretty good mathematically. I have a pretty good mathematical mind, but man, it's been 20 years since I've done any real math. So I was very worried about how I was going to satisfy these requirements. They did say that they have some learning modules, and I didn't know what that meant. So once I got in, I was just furiously trying to get access to these learning modules. I finally did get access today. And when I opened it up, I realized it's going to be very feasible to finish both of these. It's not taking calculus class. It's not taking statistics. It's sort of 6 lessons that each have 25 slides. And there's a test you have to pass for both. You have to get an 80. I think there's 10 questions on each. So I think I'm going to be able to handle that. It doesn't mean I'm going to take it lightly. I am going to go forward and make sure to do all of the preparation, to do all of the studying on it, because I want to have that statistics and calculus base as you head into the MBA program. It is important. Not as worried as I was there, but I'm looking at starting up right after Memorial Day. It's going to be a different kind of summer than usual. But again, I am looking forward to the challenge. I'm looking forward to the chance to fill my previously off time, which, let's be honest, once you have a kid, once you have 2 kids, once you're married, once you have a day job, off time is not what it used to be. You really don't have any. You go from your day job to your night job to your always job. You're a parent. You never know how those nights are going to go. Bedtime is usually 8 p.m. With the second kid, as I said, it's just every 3 hours, however the day falls. So you really have diminishing windows of free time. And I think I will have an easier time of carving time when it's for professional enrichment and for professional advancement, and school does that. So my wife's going to have a lot on her plate. She always does. But there's going to potentially be a couple of nights a week where I'm out of the box. You do 2 classes. It's usually once a week. It's nighttime, 6 to 9:30 p.m. So that's just 2 nights that I'm not home. So we're going to have to see how things go. It's exciting, though. The unknown can be exciting when you put yourself forward and you try to advance yourself. So that is my plan there. The other thing is we are looking forward finally to tomorrow getting our new washer and dryer. What an absolute nightmare this has been. The day before my son, or the day before we were to go in to have my son, Connor. So this would have been the Saturday before, so that would mean 18 says, so like the 16th of February, a Saturday, we went in because our washer, we put in a big comforter. So this is what I came to realize was the problem. We put in a comforter, and all of a sudden, my wife was downstairs putting breakfast together for my firstborn, and water started leaking down into the kitchen. Now, it is a fantastic thing to have a washer and dryer on the second floor, just one door over from your bedroom. It is fantastic. You're not putting together large swaths of clothes and having to go down 2 stories down to the basement, to the dark, dank basement, and doing your laundry there. I'm not going to complain. That is still markedly better than having to slub off all these clothes to a laundromat and to while away your day at a laundromat doing the washing and drying. It is bar none the most amazing thing to have it in your home, and to have it on the second floor is amazing. But there is no give when things go wrong when it's on the second floor. It is dropping right down into your kitchen. Anybody who's heard this podcast knows that the next room over in the dining room from the kitchen, I had the same problem because I had a shower from our master bedroom that was leaking. We got that fixed. It hasn't happened since. But it is one of the worst feelings when water starts pouring into the first floor. You feel like the problem is much more ubiquitous, that there's a bigger structural issue, when in reality it's just water. And it turns out that putting a comforter in that washer we had, which is old, it's been there since we've been in our house, coming up on 8 years in April, and it had to have been there many years before. I don't think it was new, but when you put a comforter, it kind of overwhelms the size of the basket, and the water has nowhere to go, so it pops out the sides, out the top, and enough water filters into the floor that then finds the seams and has nowhere to go except down into the first floor. So we thought it was something different. It turns out to be that. But regardless, we went ahead and got a new washer and dryer. Why not? It's time. We'll get a bigger one. So on that 16th, we did that. The washer and dryer was supposed to be delivered on the next Wednesday. So 4 to 5 days later, and we ended up having our son Tuesday, 12:30 a.m. And then Wednesday morning, I get the call. I had my nanny, or our nanny, come by to be there to allow the workers in. They were going to haul away the old ones, bring in the new ones. And the nanny called me and said, Matt, they're saying that it's too icy. And I went, damn it. That's okay. That I understand it. It is too icy. That's unsafe. And the guy said, I'm sorry. I said, look, I'm at the hospital with my wife. I really didn't have the opportunity to take care of that. I was hoping they would kind of find their way around it anyway. So they said, we're going to have to come back. So they came back, I think, the next Monday or Tuesday. They appeared again, and I was all set to have them. And then the guy the guy down at the truck at the end of the road, or at the end of our driveway, called up to the guy who was talking to me at the front step and said, hey, you got to come here. The guy came. Then the guy called me down. He went and he said, look, the dryer, the window is smashed on it. And I went, well, what the heck? And he goes, I recommend we take them back. He goes, don't accept one, because then there's going to be a weird thing. If they have to move the one they already put in, they're not going to want to do it. You're going to be caught in a whole weird situation. So I said, all right, fine, take it. I don't know what to tell you. So they took it. The next time they come, about a week later, a new set of guys. There's like 27 trucks going around from this group, so you never get the same people who were there the first time. So the next week, the next group comes. The guy comes upstairs and goes, let me see where we're putting this in. He looks in the room and he goes, yeah, we're not going to be able to deliver this. He goes, your shutoff valves are corroded. The vent that's going into the wall, that the part of it needs to be on the outside of the wall. We can't do this, sorry. And he goes, do you want us to deliver it and leave it here? And I'm like, no, what the heck are we going to do? I hadn't even thought about the fact they could put it on the second floor, but I'm thinking they'll put it in the garage. What are we going to do with it? I'm dumbfounded by this whole thing. So we said, no, just take it. So the guy takes it. A week later, our fourth delivery. We are now 3 weeks out from when we actually purchased this. We have a newborn. We have a 4-year-old. We have laundry that is filling up and filling up. We have parents that are taking our laundry home to do it and bring it back like it's a service. And it is not fun to be without a washer and dryer. You realize I will never say a bad thing about having to do washing and drying again, because it's awful not having it. So the fourth time they come around, they show up. I wasn't there because I'm back at work. And now my wife's kind of arguing with them. She has the baby in her hands. And the guys had come up and taken the old washer and dryer at this point. So now the room's empty. They go to the truck. They open up the box and they came back and said, the washer is broken. The leg, one of the legs is broken. It's broken off. And the guy said, do you want us to deliver it anyway? And my wife's like, why would I do that? And the guy said, well, we can deliver it. You can still use it. It's going to be bumbling around like crazy without it's going to be like a dog without missing a leg. It's not going to look very good. It's going to be making a lot of noise bouncing around. And the guy goes, I recommend we deliver it and then you call Home Depot right away. And they have a 48-hour policy where they'll deliver you a new one as long as you kind of alert them to the fact that this one is bad in the first 48 hours. So I'm sitting there going, no, absolutely not. So she tells them to take it. And the guy's like, no, why don't you keep it? And we're like, why are you telling us to keep it? And it was really because they just wanted to drop it off. And so I asked the guy, I'm like, well, can we keep a record? Can you guys make a record that it's broken? It's being delivered broken? He goes, no, we don't really have the capacity to do that. And this is the part of humanity where I'm just going, enough. Yeah. Why can't anybody take ownership of something? Why can't anybody do the right thing? Up and down this entire chain, we're now on our fourth delivery, and this is just getting absolutely out of control. So we told them, no, don't deliver them. Take them away. But we don't have a washer and dryer now. As I said, when I came to realize that our washer really was just overwhelmed by a comforter. And why did we figure this out so many years after living in this house? Because adults don't have a need to be washing comforters regularly. We take a comforter to a dry cleaner at the end of the winter, and that thing gets cleaned and it gets packaged up, and then we put it back in place when it gets cold again at the end of the fall. But when you have a little kid who sleeps on top of a comforter who's 4, the amount of times in a handful of months that they might pee and then that pee goes onto the comforter and it needs to be cleaned more than the normal time for adults. Now you're coming to realize it. We had never put a comforter in the washer before. So that was the reason the leak was happening. Once I realized that, I said, no, we could put in other clothes. We'll be fine. So now at this point, they removed those. My wife says, bring them up. And the guy goes, we can't do that. It's against the rules. We can't put it back in place. And she's like sitting there going, boy, it's amazing how these rules never work out to our advantage, the customer. So anyway, we've now been about a week, another week again, that we haven't even had anything in our house. My wife's been hand washing like she's an Amish person, and so we basically call Home Depot. We've been on the phone with various groups. LG, who's the maker of the washer and dryer, the delivery company, Home Depot. We've been on the phone with these groups for like 6 hours at this point. It's like we're trying to buy a black market washer and dryer. We bought a washer and dryer from Home Depot and we want it delivered to our house. And we are now 3 to 4 weeks on after that, putting in time left and right all over the day while we have a baby and a 4-year-old. While my wife's recuperating. It's a mess. It's terrible, brutal experience. I wouldn't even go in and buy a light bulb from Home Depot anymore. That's over. My family as well. I mean, it's crazy how bad everyone's been in this process. So then Home Depot calls up and says, I'll tell you what, we're going to offer you for the same price you paid. We're going to go up a level on the washer and dryer. I'm like, okay. And the guy goes, the reason that's a good idea is you'll get one for your pain and suffering here. You'll get something better. And we'll be able to do a fresh order, which means now we're on the first order of something rather than the fifth delivery where things can just go wrong. Because you come to realize, because this washer and dryer had to come back and forth so many times, had to be put back on a truck, taken off a truck, the thing breaks. Because once it gets in your house, it's not getting jarred around from the outside as much as it does when it's getting lifted and taken off of a truck. And so that's sort of what happens. So by doing a fresh delivery, it's getting loaded to the truck and that's it. And then it's getting loaded to your house and that's it. It should be fine. So the guy says this and he goes, an associate from my Home Depot will be calling with the details. No one calls. An associate named Kelsey. No one calls. Then around 8 p.m. as I'm reading bedtime stories to my son Liam, Melanie gets a call and it's somebody from the Home Depot. Somebody, I'm not speaking badly, it's probably English as a second language, very hard to understand, had no idea of our story, was not brought up to speed on it, and proceeds to ask Melanie to tell her the story. And Melanie's like, really? And then she's telling us that there was not an order for a dryer. It's only a washer. We're spending another 2 hours on a Friday night. We finally get to Friday. We want to have some wine, some burritos. We just want to have a nice night when we're looking ahead to a night where we're probably not going to sleep a ton. And here we are on the phone with this person who has no idea what's going on, and we're just losing it. And so we said, all right, we're done. Have somebody call us in the morning. And we just can't do this. The woman's, and I feel bad because the woman was just trying to be friendly. She didn't like being spoken so harshly to. It wasn't her fault. It was the accumulated kind of pings of each level of this crazy process of 4 weeks of buying something. It just went so badly over this whole process. And she was the culmination of it all on a Friday night when she hadn't been given enough info, when she'd been given a faulty order that wasn't true to what had actually been said. Prices weren't making sense. Discounts weren't making sense. This wasn't even her specialty. And someone put her on the line. And this just annoyed me the most of humanity. People know that we are an annoyed customer and they didn't want to deal with us. Even though they were the ones who put us in that position, even though the manager of that store had called us with this offer. It was clear what the offer was, but nobody wanted to follow up the right way. They just wanted to kind of push it to the next person and go home themselves on a Friday, I'm guessing, and go on with their life and have their nice Friday night. And so this poor woman got put in this position and we're yelling at her. And because who are we going to yell at? She is the representation of everything that's been wrong with this process. And so we said, all right, we're done. Bye. And I told Melanie, I said, we're going to cancel this thing tomorrow. We're going to go to more of a local place that actually you buy it there. They deliver it themselves. We know who the person is. From end to end, we know who is providing the service. So that was the plan. I said, unless they call tomorrow and everything's figured out. Somehow they called the next day. Everything was figured out. The appliance specialist called. The assistant manager handed off to him. Everything made sense. The price made sense. The discounts, the goods that we were being offered were right. And so here we go. Another shot Thursday. Tomorrow, it's going to be the big day to figure out whether everything is right with that. So it's gonna be something. Speaking of electronics and goods, it's funny. A friend of mine, people know him. He's been on the podcast. Jonathan Griggs, the person behind the Dolan J. Trump account on Twitter that kind of speaks as James Dolan, but with a Donald Trump tinge, a heavy Donald Trump tinge, able to use literal Donald Trump tweets and change around kind of in a Mad Libs way the people involved or the principles that are being discussed in a way that is just uncanny. It's a fantastic account, really a good mind. And he had called me asking about smart TVs. He's someone who hadn't bought a TV in probably over a decade. He actually has a television with a VCR in it in his bedroom. So he knows nothing of new TVs or anything. So he was a little overwhelmed by the process, sort of as overwhelmed as I was about buying a washer dryer. You come to realize in a similar way, technology has overtaken these. They've all been commoditized. The prices come way down. There's really nothing special about a television anymore. It's almost like they're just big phones, right? And they are. If you look at a smartphone, turn it sideways, it's just a TV. It's just a small TV. And so TVs really are just commodities. And so many people are offering them. So many people are in competition on them that the prices come way, way down. People buy TVs more often. I remember I bought the TV in my living room when the Giants were last in the Super Bowl. So that would have been just when it went over into 2011, right? So first one was 2007. Well, no, it was the 7. I always mess up with the way the year turns over. But they actually won in 2007, and then they won in 2011, right? And so in that 11 year, in between that, that week off in between the conference championship game and the Super Bowl, I went to Best Buy and I bought an enormous Panasonic 60-inch TV, plasma, at the time a really special TV that I was able to get for $798. It felt like a steal. It's a good price too. I mean, it's a good price. It does have apps built into it, but I didn't end up actually using those ever because you have to actually plug them in. It didn't have a wireless way to access those apps. You would have actually had to Ethernet it. And so I had Apple TV boxes. I had, all the kinds of Rokus and all that. I've always had those, so I just use that to plug in to get the smart enabled aspects. But I've loved that TV. We had it mounted in our house eventually once we had our first child, and that is our living room TV. I've always loved it. It's a great TV, great size. Remember the first time I put it in there, I actually put it in myself, and I was just blown away. I put a college basketball game on, and I was like, wow, it feels like I'm there. Now, it's interesting because all these years later, you become habituated to it, and it's really not that big to you anymore, which is crazy the way the mind works. It's sort of like phones, too. You get these huge phablets, and then they're just normal. The only time you realize they're not normal is when you try to stick them in your pocket and it doesn't fit. So that is really where we're at. We do that. Earlier this year, on Prime Day, I got a Fire TV. So that's Amazon's branded televisions. I think it's a Toshiba, and it's got the Fire TV guts in it. Great TV, 4K, 55 inches. It was like $260 or something like that on Prime Day. Just a tremendous television. The Fire TV guts have all the apps you need, everything you need. The only problem for me, my cable TV provider is YouTube TV, or my cable TV replacement is YouTube TV. Amazon and YouTube or Google, they're always in a fight, so there's no app allowance for YouTube TV on that. So I just plug a Chromecast dongle into one of the HDMIs, and that way I get my full YouTube TV. But that plus the $260 TV, you're in really good shape with that. I mean, it's just tremendous picture, and it's in our basement, so I use it when I'm working out. We have another couch down there. I can watch stuff. Really nice TV to kind of lock into and watch. But TVs are just such commodities. He was having such a kind of hard time figuring out what to get, and you should be discerning about price, about features, about kind of software, hardware. There is a need for that, but they really are all a dime a dozen in a way. They're all going to be starting at a couple $100. And really what you come to find, the cutoff is 55 inches. If you get 55 inches and under, it's going to be extremely cheap. Once you start going over 55 inches, that's where they start to gouge you on the price. The 55 inch and under is sort of the commoditized television. And 55 inches is pretty darn big, I'll tell you that much. But really what you have to look at when you get a TV these days, and I'll tell you what, the one thing I realized when I've done this is that Apple really lost out. You remember a couple of years ago when Apple was apparently going to be creating or building TVs? So they would have their own standalone televisions, and then the TV iOS would be embedded in it. That to me is the cleanest way to do things. I don't like at this point when you're plugging in Roku devices and Chromecast and Apple TV devices, outside devices into the HDMI. I don't like that as much now because it's not necessary. Those things were necessary transition steps because televisions that are maybe 10 years old didn't really have all the apps you need or the ecosystem in the apps, the app ecosystem in the television to be able to scale to new apps and things like that. So to plug in, to plug in $100, a $200 at the most, Chromecast $35, to plug one of those into these TVs that were $1,000 made a ton of sense. But that now the fact that TVs can be had for so cheap, and they have the, in effect, they have the app ecosystem built into them. That to me is the way to go. And Apple's really lost out because there really is a place for Apple to have a TV. I think March 25th, they have a big announcement coming that has to do with television. But I think everything I've heard is that they got out of the hardware game. There wasn't money in it. But I think there would have been, because can you imagine if Apple put out a TV that had the guts of the Apple TV box in it, which is a really nice interface, and that had the kind of design and sheen of an iPhone or the new iPad Pros, where there's no real, I always mess up, is it bezel or bevel? The thing that is kind of around the side of the screen. I think it's bevel or bezel. I think it's bezel. Whichever one it is. Imagine a beautiful Apple TV where it's almost all screen, and it's got that deep black to it, and it's just unbelievably beautiful looking, and the kind of resolution looks beautiful, and then it has that app ecosystem, that Apple app ecosystem in it. That to me is tremendous, and I think Apple missed out there. It's kind of similar to the way Apple got out of cars, or at least announced they got out of cars. It's like they try to get into these hardware games that they think they can affect change in, and then they realize it's too rich for their blood, or they won't make enough on it, and they get out. It's going to be too hard. Let's go back to phones. Let's go back to watches. Let's go back to iPads. Let's go back to computers. But they missed their chance because it really is a dime a dozen to get into these. And if I'm going to buy a TV, I'm now buying a TV that's going to have somebody else's ecosystem already in it. I'm going to be less apt to buy a separate Apple TV box, which can be upwards of like $150, $175. That's a lot of money. You can almost buy a TV that's really nice for that. Buy a big 55-inch TV. And so Apple's kind of lost out there. At least with the Chromecast, it's just so tiny you can plug it in and you can just cast from your phone. But when you think about some of these Android-ish TVs, so the Samsungs, you think about a lot of these televisions that have the app ecosystems in them, and then by default they have Chromecast built into them too, so you can fling things from your phone. That is a great option to be able to have. But these standalone boxes and these standalone dongles and these things that plug into the HDMI are just de-emphasized now. You almost feel silly. You feel like it's not as elegant a solution to be just plugging outside things into it. Feels strange. It's kind of how I felt when Google came out with the Chromecast audio. Like, how many people in this time of Google speakers and in this time of Echoes and even the Apple HomePods where you can talk to them, how many people really have old speakers that they just want to plug in like a Chromecast audio to turn it into that kind? The price on the actual speakers that have it built in are so cheap now, relatively, that there's just not a market for it. And it's kind of gotten that way with televisions. And so what I'd almost say with the TVs is they're all commodities, especially from 55 inches and below. 4K is great. Most are going to come with 4K though. But you have to realize whether the apps are available that are in 4K to be able to take advantage of that. And sometimes to get to 4K makes your app price be even more. I'm thinking of you, Netflix. If you want to get 4K content, it's like $2 more a month. So you need to pay more to get those apps to upgrade. But like on my Fire TV downstairs, since it's an Amazon TV, anything that's Amazon is 4K, and it is beautiful. It is something else to watch. But if I have to choose a system, I'd say Roku. Again, I have a Fire TV, but there's no YouTube TV support except through a browser, which is limited in the user interface. So I got to end up plugging in a Chromecast, which is fine, but it's not optimal. Roku's got everything. Roku is sort of the independent authority in television streaming. They just literally have everything you need in the experience. They have every app. They have YouTube TV. They have Amazon. They have Google. They have every app you could possibly need. I don't think they have iTunes, although I do hear that eventually AirPlay 2 support is coming to Roku's, so you'll have the ability to fling, at least from your phone, almost in a Chromecast kind of way. Roku TVs are probably the best, and you'll get a good price point there, but you're not going to go wrong. But again, the TVs plus the price, the lowered price of them, they really seem to phase out the consoles and the sticks. It's a weird thing that really made me, as I was thinking about the answer for my friend, trying to help him figure out what to get, it occurred to me that Apple really missed the boat. I never thought they did because they have their standalone Apple TV, but that Apple TV, that newer one, that 4K, is almost as much. It's 2/3 of the way to the price point of getting a full TV that can have 4K in it already. So they might have lost out a little bit on that. And maybe we'll see what their big announcement is. Maybe they are going to come back around and announce hardware. That would be a really neat thing if they actually ended up doing it. But I don't, kind of all signs point to them not doing that. So, I had a quick kind of time here coming up against 4 p.m. I got something else I got to do. I do have a lot of other subjects, including John Morant. I've been watching a lot of documentaries. I've been treating HBO Go more like Netflix, where I just clear through and watch as much as I can. Been watching a lot of TV, a lot of documentaries. So I got a lot of kind of things I want to talk about there. And as I said, John Morant, man, I got a lot of thoughts on him as his Murray State, is it boxers or racers, as they head into the tournament. I did see that. I think they were the first team in, right? So let's call it there, my friends. Thanks so much for listening as always, and I will talk to you soon.